Hello and welcome to the second installment of the now weekly Amateur CSGO podcast, where we provide you, the listener, with scores, league information, and interviews with a different theme each week. This week's theme is all about North American organizations. Are they worth it? Where can you find them? And what are they looking for from you? But today, unfortunately, Upper Spark and Noah are going to be both away for personal reasons. But don't worry, I shall continue the show and give the listener what we promised, which is a weekly podcast. All right. Well, so I guess the first order of business would be the scores from the week from the various leagues. Kiwi is in week 2. I believe this is week 3, but they're in week 2 matches right now. So we'll get you those. We'll get you those matches next week. Unfortunately, they aren't really posted just quite yet. But big one last week, of course. Continental League had their finals, and it went smooth. It went well. There was a CSGO update actually right before it, so the server had to be updated. But your boy Huey, who's the voice that you're hearing right now, is was also the voice that you guys heard casting that. So it was actually between Panda Gaming and Feint Gaming, and Feint Gaming kind of pulled off a bit of an upset and beat them 2-1. Very close series. Panda actually was the fan favorite. Every time I looked in chat, it was a bunch of like Panda pride and stuff like that. So definitely the fan favorite. I know a lot of people were disappointed, but I could not have asked for a better finals. I mean, I've casted both of those teams before. The maps that we got were fantabulous. It was a bit of a runaway on a couple of maps, but Panda kind of tried to keep it close. They actually picked up Cash 16-12. Feint, however, bounced back and got the 10-5 halftime on the CT side of Mirage. That kind of propelled them to get to the 13-5, and then Panda staged a small little comeback. It looked like it might happen, but they got shut down. And their economy was crushed. They tried to win it out on Eco. It didn't work out well, so it was 1-1 in the series. It came down to Inferno. Both of these teams had an amazing showing on Inferno before, so I was expecting a really good map, and well, what it came down to was banana control. Feint Gaming just kind of got aggressive on banana, and Panda couldn't really punish it. It was Mango and Aspie. Mango and Aspie were the duo that kind of always went down banana, so they couldn't punish that aggressive play coming out there from the CTs, and that put them down. I think it might have put them down mentally as well. Some of the comms might have started breaking down, and that ended up with Feint taking that map 16. I believe it was 16-12. So, two really close maps, maybe not in score, but definitely each round could have gone either way. There was a lot of 1v1 clutches, and it's always good to see that coming out there from the Continental League. So their next league is the details are yet to be released, so we're not quite sure as to how that goes. But let's get actually right into the meat of this podcast, the interviews. Herc from Gen X. We have Herc here. How are you doing
Hello.
today?
Good. How are you?
I'm not too bad, not too bad. So you want to give us a little bit about what Gen X is about, kind of some philosophies that you guys have, and then we'll get into the CS:GO side of things. Just maybe introduce Gen X and yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Herc. I'm the owner of Gen X. We have some co-owners, but I have the most I guess you would call it uh
Authority.
yeah, our authority. So I've been working with Rain, who is our general manager, also a co-owner. I've been working with EDM King, who is he's our content creator like manager. He manages our content creators, which we have partnered with quite a few. I think we're up to like 6 now, and he's been recruiting some more, so that's good. We're a multi-platform global esports organization. Our sponsors right now are Insane Labs, Bluevos, Techni Support, and Boss Boxes. And you can use the code GenX with a capital G at each of those sites for a discount. There's my plug.
Nice, nice. You might also want to plug your Twitter at the end of this, but okay, so let's get right down into it. You guys obviously have a couple of CS:GO teams. Can you guys just tell us the what CS:GO teams you have, what leagues they're competing in, and such on and so forth?
Yep. We have three CS:GO teams right now. We're in the mix of maybe picking up another. I'll talk more about that. But right now we have a team. We call them our NACS team. We've had them for a while. It's been a few months now. They participated in the Stardom Arena, which I know Hugh is familiar with. It was smaller tournament, but still fun. Uh, Dip their toes in the water as far as competitive play goes, and we actually did pretty well in that. So
Hey,
that's one of our teams. They right now they're set up to play ESEA Open, already paid, registered for, and that starts June 1st, if I remember correctly. All the
does.
leagues for ESEA start June 1st. We have an EU team that we recently picked up within the past 2 weeks, I think. It's an EU IM team. They are spread out in Europe. I think two are from Ireland, one's from the UK, and then I think two are from Denmark. So,
Wow.
pretty spread out team. Um, they get along well, they play well together. They're a good team. And they'll be representing us in ESEA Open. I mean, IM and EU. They're already registered and paid for as well. And we've been talks with a ESEA main team and a ESEA main team, and they have agreed to all the terms that I have presented them with. Not going to specify anything, and we're just waiting to write up our contracts and send them to the players.
All right, so some exciting things happening within Gen X. So I guess I would ask you next. Would the next question would be, you guys said that you guys were drafting up contracts. So you guys don't have contracts right now. I know that might not be like something that you want to disclose, but just kind of giving some information as to if the general consensus is that contracts are needed, or especially in the amateur CS:GO scene. How does that work? Because I'm assuming you paid for at least part of their ESEA entry fee.
Yeah, I'll disclose some stuff. So we're paying for their ESEA entry fee, and we're also giving them minimal salaries. Not going to say it's like a giant salary. It's very minimal, but they can work their way up as they continue to perform well. And I think contracts are necessary if you're going to be providing a team with funding.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we usually will talk with the team, we'll work out all of the details, and then we'll write up the contracts specific to the team. So it's not like we have a default contract where you just change a few words or something. We'll write it up specific for the team afterwards. So it does take a while. It'll probably take us like maybe a week to finish writing the contracts. Um, so it takes a while, but it's definitely worth it because you get some safety, I guess. Both the organization and the players can feel safer in the with the deal.
Yes. It's kind of not yeah. So I know that you guys do have a lot of CS:GO teams, and you guys are talking with some ESEA main teams. But let's bring it back to before you guys had some CS:GO teams. Um, a lot of our listeners are competing in smaller leagues such as Continental and Kiwi, and by smaller I just mean not as big of names as per se ESEA or CEVO. And so I was wondering what you guys do you guys look there as an organization? Do you know other organizations that do look there for teams? What's the best way to get an organization if you don't want to go through ESEA and CEVO, or say you're on the off season of ESEA and CEVO, you're looking for an organization? What's the best way to go about getting one there?
Looking for an organization, I would you can go on Twitter and you can look up like probably esports, and then a ton of organizations will pop up. I suggest like DMing people's Twitter, because when an esports organization is looking for a team, they would probably go to some place like CEVO, ESEA, or somewhere popular. So if you're not on the popular scene yet, if you're participating in smaller leagues, smaller tournaments, and you don't want to use ESEA or CEVO to find an organization, then I suggest going on Twitter and DMing some organizations to see what they can offer you.
Okay, so it should be, if you guys are in smaller leagues, make sure you guys are checking Twitter daily. I mean, that's how I find a lot of my organizations. So I guess the Twitter is the best way to do it then. Is that what you say?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the best way to do it, easiest way to contact an organization. Just make sure you personalize a message because I know that I get probably like 40 messages a day, but half of those, more than half, are spam messages. So if I see like a message that says like hello and then has like two tabs down, and then it's gonna be like I always like think of it, it's gonna be like a huge paragraph, like with someone plugging uh whatever for me following them or something. Just an automated message. So make sure that you personalize your message and like within the first sentence, you make sure that they know it's not an automated message.
Hello, this is not an automated message. I have a CSGO team. No, I kid. But okay, so moving on to the mentality of an organization owner. Um, when you guys are looking for a team, what do you guys look for mainly in a team? Is it a lot of results? Is it kind of skill based? Is it like a mixture of everything? Is it personalities? How well they mesh together? What's your like main focus when you're looking for a team?
Yeah, so when looking for a team, obviously I think every single thing like I guess comes into play. But I would mainly look for like an active team. If the players are always like online, improve their game. Whereas it's pretty but they're only practicing a couple times a week, that team is likely not going to continue to improve to the level that we want. So we look for like the amount that they play. Uh, we look for obviously skill level. That's important as well. Not gonna just say that's not important when it's definitely something that we look for in a team or in players. And like how well the team meshes together, how well they like communicate. That's very important. But as like on like a personal level, not everyone on a team necessarily needs to get along. I think to have an extremely successful team is definitely helpful, but I'm not going to turn down a team because they have a couple players who don't necessarily like each other. Your job is to play together as long as you guys like your personal problems, don't come into play in game and it doesn't affect your in-game play, and that's fine. You just try to sort things out, but if you can't, just play together, practice together, and try to, I guess, ignore all your problems with each other.
Okay. I would then go to what are you guys hoping for in the future of not necessarily just the CS:GO teams, but the organization as a whole?
Well, we have a lot of teams. Like I could give you specifics for each game, um, but we're trying to get. I would consider ourselves like low tier semi-professional, and a lot of our teams are like low tier semi-professional teams. But we want to get into, I guess, the scene where we're recognized as an organization. All of our teams are recognized. They may not be professional yet. Like they may not be like up there with Cloud9, Fnatic, CLG, but they're more, I guess, our organization would be related to teams such as this is an EU one, but Rogue, teams smaller, I guess.
So yeah, so setting some realistic goals, I guess, and so I guess that would be also answering the question: where do you guys see yourself in a couple of years? On the level of Rogue, or are you guys giving yourself a little 2 years to go, kind of above that?
I would say like I to get on the level of Rogue, it's not going to be easy. They're one of the most, I guess, popular semi-pro organizations in numerous games, but I wouldn't even say in 2 years we'll be at that level. If we work like hard enough, I feel like we'll be able to get there in maybe 4 years. Because it all depends on, I guess, the people you surround yourself with. I feel like I have great staff that helps me, so I don't have to do everything by myself. Um, but to build up an organization like Rogue, that took them years. That took them a long time. Just as it's gonna take us a long time to build that reputation. But I don't mind waiting 4 or 5 years, of putting in, hard work, finding players, finding teams, trying to improve them, um, working behind the scenes, getting apparel, selling apparel. I don't mind doing all that for 5 years if it can get us to the point, like Rogue is. So I don't think it's gonna be like an instant thing. It takes a long time to build up like a fan base even. Like we have people that are like fans, but a lot of them already like the only reason they know us is because they were either in our organization, um, they watched our streamers, whatever. but like I would say our fan base, like our real fan base, like people that would spend money to get our apparel is probably under 200, like for sure. So you just have to build that up like a team like Rogue, they have thousands and thousands, and that took years for them to do that. Um, you can't just have good teams even and expect your organization to have a fan base. You'd have to, in order to build up like within a short amount of time, you need to invest a lot of money right away in getting a professional level team. So I suggest also to like I guess any other like smaller organizations or teams that want to maybe form an organization around themselves, around their team, that you don't rush things. It's gonna take time, and you're gonna have to be committed for years.
All right. Is there any closing? Oh, sorry. Not closing remarks. Just quite yet. I do have a question. So, that being said, about getting your name out there and stuff like that, it does have help to have big names in your organization. There's a lot of rumors floating around that you guys tried to pick up Loop. Who, if you guys don't know who Loop is, he's a 16-year-old CS:GO player. He's really good at the game. He's partially, yeah, he's partially blind and partially deaf. He has a uh, genetic disease which disabled him a lot. He doesn't have a lot of teeth because he can't feel pain, I believe, is
Yep.
the disease. And he's a big streamer on Twitch. He's gotten a lot of followers recently, and his name is quite big. And so having anybody associated with his name would be obviously a step forward for you guys. So apparently there was some attempt to approach his team as to a sponsorship towards that. So if you could just maybe give some backstory or just give some context to that, we can just talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I have quite a bit. So I'll like I guess I'll give you the run through from the start. So I was watching some of on YouTube. I was watching some clips of Loop, and I noticed that he had a practice with his team in one of the clips I was watching. So I'm like, I want to, look into seeing what like his team is, like their level of play, I guess. See how good he is, because he's very impressive for having the disabilities that he has. He's a very impressive player. Probably better than I'll ever be. I'm gonna be honest. So we looked into his team. I only remember, well, I remember all of the players, but the three like main players that I guess I'm gonna talk about is Mini Mo was on the team. um, Mo's little brother, obviously another big name, good amount of following. Kirby, who is the captain of the team, good player. Um, he's starting up, I think, a stream with his brother or something called Mach 1. And then there's Loop. So I contacted Kirby because he's the captain of the team. So I contacted Kirby first. So I talked with him. Um, we actually, you know, they were Kirby was saying that they wanted to accept the deal and that he just needed to, run it by the players, whatever. But he said that they would think to accept it. We were offering them salaries, obviously we'd pay buy-ins, and maybe even eventually move up to travel fees. But that obviously wasn't included in the first contract. The salaries are more than we offer our main team, because getting this team would be both a solid roster. They're a solid roster. They performed well in scrimmages. And you could tell they wanted it. They practiced a lot, whatever. But also, it would give us, good publicity. They knew that. We knew that. That's why I guess they were offered so much. But not only our organization, apparently a lot of teams were going to them. So contacted them. Kirby was supposed to get back to me with, I guess, their final decision, and I go to their ESEA group, just to, I guess, check things out again, see how they're doing, and I noticed that a couple of players left the group. So I contacted Kirby and asked him, what's the deal? And apparently their team split up. Loop's team, it was Loop, OMG Lopez, who's another streamer, Kirby, Minimo, and then one other who I forget, but that was the roster at the time, and I noticed that I think Loop and Joe were the only ones in the group. So I mean, Minimo left, Kirby left, and the other person left. So I asked Kirby what went down. So they split up. They thought, I guess, that they wanted to test out other teams. I'm not sure of everything. I wasn't supplied with all the details. So their team split up. So I didn't want to come out of everything empty-handed. So I contacted Joe, and I'm like, all right, because him and Loop were still in their group, so I assumed that they, wanted to stick together, build a team around themselves. Talked with Joe, saw if he wanted to, work with Loop and build a team around them. He initially like kind of wanted to do it, but I don't think Loop wanted to do it. Loop wasn't he wanted to look for a roster, he didn't want to build another one around him and Joe. So I ended up contacting Kirby again because Kirby wanted to join a team and build a team around him and Minimo. So with this, you'd still have Kirby, good player. Minimo, good player again. Publicity, you know, well known, I guess, streamer and player in the CSGO scene, as well as his older brother Mo. Um, so contacted Kirby, and we worked out a deal with them. But when it came down to discussing like precise terms on the contract, they didn't agree to be paid weekly. They wanted to get all their money paid upfront, which that's extremely fishy as an organization that they want to get their money up front and they aren't okay with getting paid weekly. You know, we wanted to have like a 1 month contract with them. It would be like a month by month basis, and then we take the money obviously for that month. We do the division, and they'd end up with a weekly salary, and we pay them at the end of each week. They didn't want that. They wanted to all be paid up front. So we had, I guess you'd call it an argument. I was just trying to explain to him that there's not going to be an organization that's going to pay them all up front, and that's not normal. But he didn't take it. He thought, I guess, was I was calling him out for being wrong. Um, so he decided that they were going to back out of that. So I guess that's the end of everything as far as that goes. And then yeah,
Okay, so it kind of sounds like they just disbanded, which was unfortunate for you guys. Is there any advantage for smaller teams to try to get a big player like Luke? Does that help them? Like, even if they're a little bit less skilled, would you say that helps them in finding an organization just because of the name of the organization, or what? Or does that is that
yeah,
helpful at all?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's definitely helpful. You want to have, obviously, it's ideal to have a skilled player, um, and popular player on your team, which I think Loop and Minimo were both skilled and popular. So I think they were like perfect, I guess, for Kirby to be associated with. I kind of feel like you don't want to be too obvious in manipulating someone both younger than you and more popular than you, like I believe Kirby is, because he never presented the contracts and what my offer was to anyone else on the team. He took it himself and said, "Hey, I don't want to be paid on a weekly basis. I want to be paid up front." So I feel like he's kind of like, I guess, controlling Minimo. He's not asking for his input on anything. Um, so I think that's wrong. You don't want to do that. If you're going to have a player in your team, don't like, I guess, use them. You want to make sure that you're friends with them. You want to make sure that they are a decent player. So don't go like finding a player that's like not even close to your team's skill level. That's popular. I would not suggest doing that because not only will your team not be performing well or have like, I guess, a fun time playing, but the player themselves will probably feel uncomfortable playing with higher ranked players and performing awfully, and they'll eventually end up leaving. Um, so I suggest that you focus on getting a good team. But if the opportunity presents itself where there's a good player and a popular player, like, the perfect combination, I suggest you try to pick them up. But obviously, it wouldn't be too easy to do that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time here today, Herc. A lot has been discussed, a lot of information given out. It's always nice to see organization owners being involved in the community and volunteering their time, and we really appreciate that you're on the stream helping us out. So, have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.
All right, perfect. One last shout out. If you have any, if anyone watching this has, anything they want to contact me about, do it through @GenXGG. That's our Twitter. Just DM me. I'll I'll respond and we can talk about whatever you want. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Now I'm gonna be transitioning into another household name in amateur CS:GO, Excel. These guys have kind of slowly been on the come up, and they've kind of peaked right now. Their league just got launched. They have a lot of teams within the amateur scene, a bunch of different games of teams and such forth. So today representing them, we do have K1 Sean. He is and he's gonna correct me in 2 seconds. He is the owner, or at least high-ranking official in Excel. So he's gonna answer some questions about the organization. And yeah, so how are you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm not doing too shabby. A little bit put on the spot here with Noah and Upper both being away today, but we're powering through. So why don't you give us a little bit of a history lesson on Excel?
Uh, you want like the full blown history lesson, or
Yeah,
you just want like a quick little story?
from the start.
Alrighty. Well, in the beginning, it started off with me joining Excel as a competitive CS:GO player. Because it was already started up. It had like, I think whenever I joined Excel as a CS:GO player, it had like 75 followers on Twitter or something like that. Super small. And I joined on as a player, and I wanted to play GoPro and CS, and then just things didn't really work out. With Excel, we got a better offer with a team called Larkon Legion, so we ended up switching over there. And the owner of Excel at the time, his name was BK. He was this really young kid. Um, uh, yeah, yeah. He was this really young kid who wanted to start up in Oregon. I was like, yo, I have some experience with running things. I used to own this league called CSML. Um, and he was like, okay, I I want you to come on and be a co-owner with me for Excel. And I was like, okay, sweet. So I went and I started doing everything. BK was kind of just sitting around like, holy shit, you're doing everything. I want to give you like the full blown power for Excel. And he ended up leaving and giving me the full ownership position, and now that's where we come now. About 2 months or 3 months into, no, I think it was like a month into me owning Excel, I picked up a team for Counter-Strike who competed in Continental League and got knocked out of Continental League about 2 rounds in to the, I think it was week 2, right after the winter tournament was over. And they didn't stick around for a while. They decided to leave, and then we picked up our second roster for CSGO, which was our team that competed in CEVO IM, who got us our main spot, who went 3 rounds in the playoffs and got knocked out. Sadly, with them, we had a lot of college players playing for us who competed in the CEVO College League, and there was a lot of fighting that was happening during playoffs. We had a couple of roster changes halfway through the season, and things didn't really work out with them. So right after playoffs for CEVO IM was over, they decided to disband. So we picked up our third roster, which this roster is actually, I can see them going really far. They too were a roster that was orgless during CEVO IM, and made it farther than our old roster did through the CEVO IM playoffs. And they just signed on to Excel for a year-long contract, and they're going to be sticking around for probably longer than I can see. This is the team that's going to be competing in CEVO Main and ESEA Open for next season, and this season for ESEA Open, which is already paid and registered, and that's basically where we stand for the CS:GO side of things for our biggest roster. We also have an academy roster who's been with us since the start. There's been a lot of roster changes with them, but we have our final roster now that we're going to be sticking with for a little bit, hopefully, who have signed on for 3 months. They're going to be competing in their first. Well, they competed through this small community league called Thunder League. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or not.
We did cover Thunder League last week but it was mentioned at least once.
Yeah, it doesn't have the best name for itself as of now of how it's been running. And then they're also going to be competing in Excel League along with our CSGO main team.
Yeah, so that's something that I definitely wanted to ask you about. The Excel League, I believe it started up right now, yes?
Yeah, we had our first match for it for our group stages was yesterday. It was Genesis versus Rage Academy, I believe.
And who
Yeah.
won that?
Genesis did. It was 16-5 win.
So I guess my question is, you guys are an organization, of course, and you guys are also running a league. So do you guys have your own little section of staff for that, or is it you as well running that league, or how does that work?
Right now, it's both. We have one guy who's been helping us run the league, and then it's been like a mixture of our staff, just like helping when they can, and just like really, the two people who have been running the league, like set everything up basically, made sure everybody plays their matches on time and whatnot. Has been the co-owner of Excel. His name is Carter, and then also one of our editors. His name is Jester. They too have basically done everything for it. I've had a very easy ride running through with the beginning of the league. All I really had to do was just communicate with teams over our Twitter and recruit them onto the league. So they've done a lot, and I'm really appreciative of what they've done because it's made my job a lot easier as an owner and not having to worry about both things of running the org and running the league at the same time.
So can you give me a couple details on that league, kind of how many teams there are, prize pool, weeks, stuff like that?
Right now, we just started group stages of Excel League. There's 8 teams in it so far. $100 goes to first place. There's going to be 4 weeks of group stages, and then I don't remember the word for it, but like how many wins and losses you get depicts what seed you get for playoffs, and then you fight your way through playoffs, and then get that final spot and get some $100 prize for playing through the league. And I was thinking about making a trophy for it that we'd send out to our whoever won the league, but we weren't able to get it for this season. But I'm planning on getting a trophy made for next season, just to add on to the fun of the league.
That's fun. You guys need stream? Is that streamed? Is that casted or?
Our group stages are not casted and streamed, but all our playoff matches will be streamed and casted.
You guys already have streamers and casters for that set up?
We have one streamer and caster for it so far. We are currently looking for casters and streamers. If anybody is interested in casting and streaming for the league, contact us at ExcelGG on Twitter, and we will get to you almost instantly every time.
You know who is a caster and streamer?
Are you a caster and streamer?
And you know who else did the Continental semifinals and finals? That's right, I did.
Hey.
I mean, let me know. We'll talk about that after the podcast. Back on the subject here. Kind of asked Herc already a bunch of recommendations about CS:GO teams. So I guess what I could ask you about is simply what are the struggles that an owner has, and how should a CS:GO team recognize this and work around that?
The struggles I personally have had with teams wanting to join Excel to play Counter-Strike is that they are very inexperienced and don't have a lot to show for themselves. With our academy team, none of them have played a season of Open or of ESCA or CEVO or anything like that. They're all extremely unexperienced teams, and that's the whole point of our academy, was to help the smaller tier players play for an org, get that experience of playing for an org, and then also help them be able to play with a team format and get up so that they can either move on from Excel or even make it up to where our main team's competing at. And then just we would even consider, like, if they prove themselves, to, instead of having them as an academy team, move them to a second roster of our main team, so they would be competing both at the same level. But until that, like until they are competing at the same level, they'd still be considered an academy team, and that's whenever it's like a little bit more rough for them. There's roster changes because it's all new players, and they need to make sure that everybody meshes well and whatnot. So it's all just a big fun time for them. But the struggle of us of just like teams coming and saying that they're better than they actually are. So we'll see them, and the thing I get a lot is what Herc said earlier was people coming and posting those really long paragraph messages of all these things that they've won, and then once you look into them, uh, I've had a lot of experience of where it's not true. So they'll say they'll go to lands, and then I'll go to where the land says, and they're not even on the roster of like any team for any of the lands, or saying that they've won tournaments that other teams have won and stuff like that. Which, if if you're going to look at joining an org, and especially an org that has a team already that's competed and is a decent team, you need to make sure that you can show for yourself, and make sure a good key part of joining an org, or like even just being a person, is being truthful. Because if you're just gonna lie up front, that it gives you a bad rep on yourself just in the beginning, and you don't want that, especially coming and talking to an owner of an organization who's going to be paying for you to play video games for them.
Yeah, yeah. Don't lie to your organization owners, guys. That seems like a pretty standard, but okay. What is the hardest part of running a league? Right. You have a staff, but surely there has to be some idea in there as to what the hardest part is.
Um, the hardest part I've come across, there's two key parts that I've seen that have been the toughest, like challenge wise. Is the first part is recruiting teams to play in your league. Since this is the first season of Excel League, not many teams. Um, I guess you could say like we we don't really have like something to say for the league because we're brand new. So like teams aren't really sure if it's going to be a good idea to play through the league or not, because it is brand new. And then the second part is with the teams playing in it and scheduling and all that stuff, is making sure everything works out. Because if you think of it, we have 8 teams, and in those 8 teams, there's 5 players per team who all have different lives, who all do different things every day. So you have to make sure that um, each team gets to play with each team and make sure everybody, I don't know, I guess like scheduling wise, make sure everybody matches up and is able to play whenever other teams can play. It's very chaotic whenever it comes down to it. But luckily, we have a lot of good staff who have been helping out and making sure everything flows good. And we have our second match tonight for Excel League. If you guys want to pop in, we'll be hosting it on our Twitter. We'll be announcing it on our Twitter. It's at 9:30 EST, and it's X13 versus Newt Newt. If anybody wants to pop by, we'll be hosting the stream on our main Twitch. If you guys want to throw in some plugs, it's official Excel GG. Follow us.
Please follow us. So you guys kind of emerged recently, I would say, quite in relative to other organizations, quite recently. What would you say to because some of our listeners may be interested in starting an organization after hearing the podcast? What would you say is the most crucial part of getting your name out there?
The most crucial part of getting your name out there, can you like
Yeah, so
explain a
like
little bit more?
what's the best way to do it? Why what's the best way to do it? How would you do it if you do it all over? And also like is it better to have a lot of followers but not be active, or not have a lot of followers but be super active?
Um, the best the best thing I've noticed with running an org and seeing our followers like actually uh, interact with our like Twitter and whatnot is the best feeling I get is whenever we post something on our Twitter, and then 10 minutes after it's posted, we just get spammed with likes and retweets on all of our posts and whatnot. Like, that's the best feeling for me personally, is seeing that, oh, someone else out there is clicking a button, liking what we're doing. And it's way better to have, say, 1,000 followers and get 100 or so likes and retweets on a tweet, rather than having 15,000 and getting 10. Because I see a lot of orgs out there who are just starting up, who started up 3 days ago and already have 15,000 followers because they buy botted accounts and whatnot.
I mean, we don't want to throw any accusations out here.
But... yeah, I don't want to. I'm not gonna name any names, but
well,
that's the thing that triggers me the most, is seeing the 15,000 follower orgs that aren't verified and get three likes per tweet and whatnot. But it just makes me really mad seeing that, because there's people out here who work for all their followers and grind and do this for months and years, who haven't got even like even orgs the same level as us, who've been doing this for months, and then the other orgs come in with 15,000 followers that have been up for 3 weeks, and they just have nothing to show for themselves. It's one of the things that grinds my gears.
That's the last question I have for you today, K1. I'd like to thank you on behalf of Amateur CSGO, and of course myself. It's been an honor as always to, get some information about you guys, get some recommendations. So thank you very much. This is the point when you plug all of your Twitters, personal, all of your sponsors. Thank anybody that you want to thank, your mom, your dad, anybody like that.
Yeah, personally, if I'm gonna thank anybody, I'd thank my staff, who's been working with me all the way up to where we are now, which is Carter, Jester, and Jacoby. You guys are the real MVPs. We're sponsored by Insane Labs, Boss Boxes, Fatal Grips, and Cyberstorm Designs. I forgot Ponage Energy, my bad. You can use code Excel for all of those, you get 10%, and with our Insane Labs, you can use code Excel for a 20% discount. It helps us out a lot. Yeah, make sure you guys go follow our Twitter at ExcelGG, and for updates on everything with Excel League. And if you are interested in joining Excel League Season 2, make sure to DM us on Twitter. We are opening up with registrations for that already. Get a show rolling for that. Thank you, Hugh, for having us.
Our pleasure, or my pleasure. There's no R in this.
Soloing it out.
Good one. All right, and with that, that concludes our podcast this week. Make sure you guys tune in next week, where we will have representatives from European organizations, because remember that CSGO is not just a North American phenomenon. If anything, it's even more popular in Europe. So make sure you guys tune in, and as always, I'm Huey. I'm your host today. Noah and Upper Spark will be back next week to make sure they help me out. You can follow me on Twitter at official_HU6HE. All of the links to the Twitters and aforementioned sponsors will be in the description on SoundCloud and also in YouTube. Make sure you guys go check out Amateur CSGO, who are the sponsors. The reason we're doing this is because of Amateur CSGO. At Amateur CSGO on Twitter, they provide you with news, interviews, and a bunch of other stuff from different leagues. This podcast kind of wraps that all together, interviews each week. It's a blast as always. Lots of great information being said today. Next week, we're going to be starting a new segment, so make sure you guys tune in for that. Today is Thursday. We will be posting this on Saturday. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. We really hope you like it. Any support you can give us and the organizations involved today is really good. So, again, this is Huey signing off. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Keep it positive.